Today I want to talk a little bit about Shakur Stevenson and where his career's at, specifically what his next fight might be, who it might be against, and who could really give him a challenge. Before I get into it, let's address the elephant in the room, Keyshawn Davis. These dudes are homies. They are not going to fight each other. I respect them making that abundantly clear, but at the same time, there's 17 weight classes. Like, damn, couldn't y'all coordinate a little bit better? Because these guys are of such a talent level that it's almost unfair to them, because there's so many guys that train together, so many guys that come up together. What are the odds that they're the exact same weight, pretty much the same dimensions, fighting at the same weight, at the same time, and they're so damn good that they don't really have anyone to compete with but each other? Some people might not agree with all that about Keyshawn, might not think he's done enough yet. That's fair, but the eye test is real. So, being Shakur's mandatory makes things very difficult. So, for me personally, I've nailed it down to about 3 guys, and 2 of them are players. Well, we'll say 3 or 4 guys that I think could give Shakur Stevenson a good fight. Okay, the first one's obviously Keyshawn, and I'm not going to spend that much time talking about it since it's obviously not going to happen. I don't expect them to fight. I'm not asking them to fight. So it's all good. Honestly, I don't care. I just think it's damn inconvenient. But I don't think there's such a predicate for it that it needs to happen. I just think that as a fan, as a wannabe pundit, I think that there's not a matchup stylistically that's as challenging for Shakur or as interesting for Keyshawn. Keyshawn is a little bit more of a banger, more of a two-handed puncher, more aggressive, steps forward more. So there's other matchups for him that could be more enticing than, more matchups for him than, say, there is for Shakur. But the reason I think Keyshawn is a good matchup for Shakur is simply because their styles are very similar, which normally wouldn't be a good thing because of how flawless Shakur is, of how technically sound he is, of how his defensive mastery. If you're coming up against him with the same style, it's a style that he's seen 1,000 times before. It's his own style. He understands it. He understands it well. Holy fuck. Normally that wouldn't be a good thing, but with Keyshawn's defensive ability and specifically his step back, that's what makes Shakur. That's what defines his game. His defense is that step back. Keyshawn's step back is just as good. I think that he's just more offensive. So I'm not saying it would be the most entertaining fight in the world. I think it would be a lot of catching, countering, touch jabs, and trying to draw out shots, specifically Shakur with his jab trying to draw out shots from Keyshawn all night long. Definitely more of a fight for the hardcores, and I would love to see it, and I think that Keyshawn absolutely challenges Shakur in more ways than anybody else. So that's why I want to mention it, because if it's just the fact that they're brothers and they don't want to fight, but they're both at the top, but stylistically it's not all that, I wouldn't bother going into it. But because stylistically I really think it would be a fantastic fight, and I think that Keyshawn's defense is supremely slept on. I don't think people really give him the technical respect, especially how much of a hothead he is, which is something I've kind of given him pushback for. He's not a hothead in the ring. Even when I've seen him not in dogfights, I've seen him in fights where he's getting clinched a lot, getting pushed back, where guys are holding him, trapping his gloves, and he stays very calm, doesn't ever get visibly upset or frustrated. So I think he's just at home in the ring, and I think that no matter who he's in there with, no matter who he's against, he's going to shine. I don't think he's ever going to be the type of guy to get taken advantage of. So yeah, I really like that fight, but I really like both guys, and I'm interested in their own individual career trajectory. So yeah, let's move on. So the next fighter I have picked given the best shot at beating Shakur is Alberto Puello, or should I say the winner of Puello versus Dalton Smith. Those guys are expected to fight. Puello is, I think he's ranked number 4 in the WBO, but Dalton Smith's mandatory anyway, and it looks like they're going to fight in, I think it's sometime in the summer. I think I saw August, but that seems kind of far away, but I guess it's actually not that far, all things considered. That's a good fight. I think that both of those guys could give Shakur a tough fight. Not so much Dalton Smith right now, because he's very unproven, and the only guy he's beaten at world level is Subriel Matias, who is actually a guy that I wanted to include on this list because, the criticism against Shakur really is his punching power. And, of course, technically, he's good enough to keep guys at bay, but he fought Zepeda, right? Who's like a get-up-on-you type fighter, get-up-on-your chest, two-handed puncher. Zepeda really did get up on him and was able to keep him on the ropes for, that was kind of dramatic, really get up on him, like really, yeah, and miss all his fucking punches. But anyway, you understand what I mean, right? Like, he was able to get close, wasn't able to do anything, but he landed some punches, some good punches, some punches that a 40-pounder might have a little bit more success with. It was a good fight. I think that Shakur would have to maybe show his punching power in that one. Could Matias make him uncomfortable? Could Matias start to get to him, start to get under his skin a little bit? I think Shakur's got underrated hitting power personally. I think he's good. And Puello is a guy like Shakur that likes to sit on the ropes, or not so much likes to sit on the ropes, but is comfortable on the back foot. So if he gets pressed by somebody who likes to come forward, he's got no problem doing that, playing that kind of game. In fact, he might prefer it. So I think that Shakur would be able to neutralize Matias, of course, but I think it would still be an interesting fight to see. The reason I don't really include it or see it as a challenge is because obviously he just got knocked the fuck out. You might feel inclined to mention, his drug test. Well, that makes him a tougher fight. So this is boxing, dude. There's no morals. I just watched a 19-year-old girl get knocked into a coma. So this is fucking boxing, baby. No holds barred. No one's going to be held accountable for that absolute fucking mismatch on a network that claims to hold 50-50 fights. No one gives a fuck. So fuck it, dude. Load Subriel Matias up with as much EPO as possible and throw him in the ring with Shakur. And I'm telling you what, we might have a fight. Okay, we might have a lawsuit somewhere, but we might have a fight. And then Dalton Smith, I'm not so convinced just yet, but if he could get through Alberto Puello, there might be some questions that some people, specifically in the UK, might want answered. And that would be a lucrative fight. It'd be a unification. It'd be fun. Dalton is you look at a guy like Sam Noakes, who is also from the UK. They have a very similar style, except Sam is a little bit more aggressive, a little bit, likes to fight a little bit closer. Not as technical, not as polished, but Sam has got he's not quite there yet. Dalton is there. And, you could see this as a little bit of an elevated, let's say if Noakes and Mason rematched in 4 or 5 years. This is a little bit of an elevated version of that matchup, hypothetically, if Dalton Smith were to go in there with Shakur Stevenson. He hasn't really proven himself to be that effective as a puncher. He hasn't shown to have that great footwork. Shakur is Shakur, nobody's going to believe in a British fighter's defense against Shakur Stevenson, against pretty much any elite American fighter. So, fair enough. I'm not saying Dalton Smith gives him a fight, but let's talk about Alberto Puello, because Alberto Puello, when I think of him fighting Shakur, the first thing I thought of was another very long and kind of slender guy, which is Edwin De Los Santos. Edwin De Los Santos and Shakur had a very, I was going to say interesting. That's really not fair. It's kind of like It's kind of like clickbait to say that. It wasn't interesting, but it was a chess match because Edwin is a little bit, I think, stylistically to beat Shakur, a little bit too focused on landing his power punches because that's actually what Shakur wants. He wants a guy that's going to come at him and let him, play into his sound defensive style. But Puello's not going to be squaring up to Shakur, over eager, desperate to land a backhand. Puello is going to be relaxed, also content to fight his defensive kind of fight. Now, this is a fight that, as a fan, like if you want a bloodbath, this isn't a crowd pleaser. This isn't a barn burner. This is again a very technical, scientific matchup. But Puello is very tricky, and he's got an off rhythm. He's got a weird style. He's got a style that Gary Antoine Russell, who, like I mentioned about Keyshawn, having a similar style to Shakur, doesn't actually make you believe in somebody generally. If you believe somebody is that good, that's how I feel about Gary Antoine Russell. I don't feel that way about Keyshawn and Shakur fighting, but I do feel that way about Gary Antoine and Shakur fighting. I feel like Gary Antoine is just too far behind Shakur Stevenson, to be honest with you. In my opinion, right? If you believe in him, God bless you. And I like Gary Antoine, but just not against Shakur Stevenson right now. Okay, but Puello is a guy that was able to make Gary Antoine uncomfortable and throw him off his game. Now, Gary Antoine has a completely different style to Shakur. I understand that they don't have the exact same style, but they both got an American boxing style. And I think that Puello could maybe get Shakur. I mean, what would Shakur be doing against Puello? Realistically, I think that Puello would be... I would expect Shakur to get on the front foot. I would expect Shakur to try and hold the center, try and get off with his jab. Maybe not get off with it. It's a little bit dramatic. He's not that fucking overzealous ever, but he's going to look to plant his feet in the center and get his jab off. And I think that Puello is going to be laying on the ropes, skirting on the outside, herky-jerky, lackadaisical with the lead hand. Is he trying to pop on you or pull you in? Can't really tell. It's a push and pull. It's sometimes he's tall and he's long, but sometimes he gets low too, and he's got angles. He's a lot more dynamic than Edwin De Los Santos. Some people think that fight was close. Me personally, I don't think it was that close. Actually, I think it was decisive for Shakur. There wasn't anything to score but jabs, and Shakur was effectively out-jabbing him. I also think that Shakur wasn't that much of a pussy in that fight, contrary to popular belief. I think that Shakur was actually throwing back a lot. Okay, but the thing is, Edwin's coming in looking to land one, and he's not bad himself, so he's getting out of there. He's got his head in the right spot. He's slipping off the line. He's pulling out aggressively after throwing one. Shakur's missing his counter. He missed his one. That was a very high-level fight, and I think that Puello's got a lot more about him and is a lot more proven and tenured than Edwin De Los Santos. He's also bigger, so I think that he could give Shakur Stevenson a really good fight, but he's coming up against Dalton Smith, like I said, who he is the mandatory for. That will be for the WBC title, so the winner of that fight, potential unification down the line. Shakur, it's a little slow right now. Maybe he takes a tune-up. Okay, he can't take his mandatory because it's Keyshawn, but, he could take a softer touch. And then these two, the winner of that fight could meet maybe at the beginning of next year or something like that. I don't know. Just spitballing. I like this. I think that Puello could present some real challenges for Shakur. Now, it's not like I've mentioned 1,000 guys, but the last person I have to talk about is Oscar Duarte, because Duarte, he hasn't really lost yet, besides... Well, he hasn't really lost yet. It's a stupid way to say someone's only lost once. I don't know why I'm beating around the bush like that. Obviously, he got knocked out by Ryan Garcia, but he didn't really get outboxed by Ryan Garcia. He got caught with a left hook on the top of the head against a very strong power puncher after 8 or 9 solid rounds of fighting. It's not like he was, I wouldn't say he was decisively outboxing Garcia, but I wouldn't say he wasn't getting outboxed. I wouldn't say he was getting outboxed, so... I think that in terms of him coming up against Shakur, obviously Shakur is way different than Ryan Garcia. Really, what you should look at is the Kenneth Sims fight. Probably that was, I think that was Duarte's last fight, but it was his last relevant fight anyway, and he was obviously supposed to fight Richardson Hitchens. Now, the thing about Sims, Hitchens, obviously those guys are not on the level of Shakur, but the thing about the comparison between Sims and Hitchens that I was looking at is that Hitchens, he moves his feet, and he's got a pretty good base, and he's not that aggressive. So I liked him against Duarte. I questioned his punching power, his physical strength, his conditioning. I had a lot more questions about Richardson Hitchens than I do about Shakur Stevenson naturally, but Kenneth Sims, he just did the wrong things, man. Like he's not got great legs. He doesn't really have a loose style. He's got like a pretty tight guard, and that hinders his mobility even more. And he's not a fleet-footed guy, like I said, and he's not very crafty or elusive. He doesn't really mix it up. So he didn't really give himself any opportunities to beat Oscar Duarte because he just didn't do the right things. Obviously, Shakur is going to fight a better fight than that. Obviously, he's going to do a lot more things. Can you imagine, though, how big Duarte would be in there with Shakur and just his constant pressure, his toughness? I don't think, what stands out, obviously, is the footwork. Duarte is completely lurched over. Talk about staying in a posture. Like, he's the definition of that. Like, and he's just looking to dig. It's no joke, it's no surprise. It's not a joke either, but it's not a surprise. He's like the juggernaut. Like, he's coming, right? You just gotta hope you can get out the way. And Shakur, obviously, I'd expect him to get out of the way, but imagine, Zepeda compared to Duarte. Seriously, trying to keep that guy off of you versus that guy off of you. It's completely different. And Zepeda probably won 3 or 4 rounds. And honestly, that's kind of the line I was drawing with myself, kind of seeing who could give him a challenge. If somebody could win 3 or 4 rounds effectively against Shakur, then I think, they might be worth considering. That's honestly where the line is at because of how good this kid is. So Duarte is very strong and physical, probably not dynamic enough. The way he loads up on those body hooks would be dangerous against such a strong power puncher. Obviously, Shakur's movement, defense, and just Duarte's lack of footwork, so yeah, but it's an interesting fight. Duarte a lot bigger, stronger than Teofimo, and Teofimo, a lot of people were talking, I think it was just the narrative, or the stylistic thing, just kind of building up the clash. A lot of people talking like Teofimo was a puncher or like a crazy pressure fighter. Really, he never really was that guy. It's just not how he fights. But a lot of people were talking that fight up like that, just kind of stereotyping it. Not really the case. Duarte is really the kind of guy that's going to get up on you, smother you. But smother Shakur, that's a whole different story. So, yeah, that's it. That's all I've got for you. Alberto Puello, Oscar Duarte, potentially Dalton Smith, pending. Sabril Matias, double asterisk. Keyshawn Davis, triple asterisk. So that's it. Outside of those guys, I think that it's pretty thin. I think it looks pretty bleak for Shakur. I don't know who he's supposed to get to give him a challenge. Maybe Floyd Schofield. I think he's fighting someone. Maybe. I think there's exciting fights that could be made. There's always, there's always drama. Shakur's always on Twitter. He's always doing something. So there's drama to be had. There's tweets to be sent. But is there actually good competitive stylistic matchups out there? A few, none on the horizon. Okay, I think at best, like I said, maybe he gets the winner of Puello Smith end of this year, maybe early next year. Maybe him and Oscar Duarte. I don't know. Maybe somehow, some way, that's the one that comes together. I wouldn't imagine, but time will tell. Shakur Stevenson is really good. I like him a lot. Don't expect him to lose anytime soon. And if he does, I expect it will be to one of these guys. Take care.